Carlos Humberto Santana Barragan was born on July 20, 1947, in Autlán de Navarro, Jalisco, Mexico, into a deeply musical household. His father, José Santana, was a skilled mariachi violinist, and Carlos picked up the violin himself at the young age of 5. By the time he turned 8, he had transitioned to the guitar, drawn in by the rich sounds of blues legends like B.B. King, T-Bone Walker, and John Lee Hooker. These early inspirations, combined with his father's musical influence, planted the seeds of a lifelong passion for music. In 1955, the Santana family relocated to Tijuana, where young Carlos was introduced to the sounds of American blues and rock and roll. A few years later, in the early 1960s, they moved again, this time to San Francisco, just as the city's vibrant counterculture music scene was beginning to thrive. In 1965, Santana officially became a naturalized citizen of the United States. By 1966, Carlos had formed the Santana Blues Band, which would soon become known simply as Santana. The group was groundbreaking, blending rock, Latin music, jazz, blues, and Afro-Cuban rhythms. Their unique sound was driven by Carlos's emotive, blues-rooted guitar riffs and a rhythm section filled with Latin percussion such as timbales and congas. The band catapulted to fame after a memorable set at Woodstock in 1969. Santana's performance, though reportedly under the influence of LSD, left a powerful impression. He later admitted to barely remembering the set. Their self-titled debut album, Santana, 1969, was a massive success, reaching number 4 on the Billboard charts and featuring the hit single, Evil Ways. The band's second album, Abraxas, 1970, included enduring hits like Black Magic Woman, Gypsy Queen, and Oye Como Va. It reached the number 1 spot and remained on the charts for an impressive 88 weeks, eventually going quadruple platinum. The momentum continued with Santana 3, 1971, and Caravanserai, 1972, though the latter marked a stylistic shift toward jazz fusion, a reflection of Santana's growing admiration for artists like Miles Davis and John Coltrane. As time passed, Santana's music continued to evolve. The 1970s saw him delve into jazz fusion and spiritual experimentation. He became a devotee of Sri Chinmoy, adopting the name Devadeep, which means the lamp of the light of the Supreme. In 1992, he embraced Christianity, adding another layer to his spiritual journey. While some of his albums during this experimental period, such as Illuminations, 1974, a collaboration with Alice Coltrane, were not commercially viable, they displayed bold artistic intent. Columbia Records even considered albums like Lotus, 1974, commercial suicide due to their niche appeal. Despite friction with his record label, Santana continued to push forward, releasing records such as Amigos, 1976, and Moonflower, 1977. Though his band lineup changed frequently over the years, Carlos remained the driving force behind the music. He worked with a variety of legendary musicians, including Buddy Miles, John McLaughlin, and Herbie Hancock, adding to his musical credibility. Then came a career-defining moment in 1999 with the release of Supernatural. This collaborative album featured contributions from Rob Thomas, Eric Clapton, Lauryn Hill, and several others. Supernatural became a global sensation, selling more than 25 million copies and earning 9 Grammy Awards, tying Michael Jackson's record for the most Grammys won in a single year. The smash single, Smooth, became the second most successful single in Billboard history. Carlos Santana maintained this momentum with subsequent albums such as Shaman, 2002, All That I Am, 2005, Corazon, 2014, and Blessings and Miracles, 2021, all of which further solidified his musical legacy. Over his illustrious career, Santana has sold more than 100 million records and performed live for over 100 million fans worldwide. He has earned 10 Grammy Awards and 3 Latin Grammy Awards. In 1998, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and in 2013, he received the Kennedy Center Honors. Most recently, in 2023, Rolling Stone ranked him 11th on its list of the greatest guitarists of all time. Beyond music, Santana has shown a deep commitment to philanthropy. In 1998, he and his first wife, Deborah King, whom he married in 1973 and divorced in 2007, founded the Milagro Foundation, which has donated over $8 million to support youth programs in arts, education, and health. In 2010, he married drummer Cindy Blackman, with whom he has collaborated on projects like Power of Peace, 2017, alongside the Isley Brothers. Santana has also ventured into entrepreneurial endeavors with his House of Santana line under ROC, offering everything from shoes and guitars to cannabis products, showcasing his broad cultural influence. Overcoming childhood trauma. One of the most harrowing yet defining aspects of Carlos Santana's life was his survival of childhood sexual abuse. Between the ages of 10 and 12, while living in Tijuana, Santana was repeatedly abused by an American man who manipulated him with promises of gifts and toys. The man exploited Carlos's vulnerable socioeconomic status and youthful innocence, luring him across the US-Mexico border into a disturbing cycle of coercion and secrecy. Santana has never publicly named his abuser. In a candid Rolling Stone interview from 2000, Santana bravely disclosed this painful part of his past. He spoke about how he initially suppressed the traumatic memories, a psychological defense mechanism common among survivors. As a child, he lacked the emotional maturity to comprehend or verbalize what had happened to him. This repression helped him survive, but the emotional scars ran deep. These traumatic experiences occurred during a pivotal phase in Santana's development, both personally and musically. His family's move to Tijuana had already exposed him to new musical genres like American blues and rock, while his father's mariachi influence had instilled a love for music. Yet beneath the surface of these cultural awakenings was a silent struggle, a burden of trauma that followed him into adulthood. The long-term psychological effects of childhood sexual abuse are well documented, often leading to profound feelings of guilt, shame, and a fractured sense of self-worth. For Santana, the abuse was more than just a violation of his body. It disrupted his developing identity, leaving emotional wounds that would take decades to address. He later admitted that although he had achieved fame and creative fulfillment, he had not yet confronted this dark chapter until much later in life. Santana's relocation to San Francisco in the 1960s and his immersion into the countercultural music scene gave him an outlet for self-expression, but it did not offer healing. The explosive success of his band, especially their unforgettable Woodstock performance and landmark albums like Abraxas, brought him recognition and purpose. Still, the deep pain of his past remained unspoken and unresolved. Trauma like Santana's often manifests in nuanced, complex ways, affecting relationships, trust, and self-esteem. Although his public persona radiated confidence and spiritual wisdom, particularly after embracing Sri Chinmoy's teachings and adopting the name Devadeep, his inner life was shaped by wounds that were not always visible to others. Despite these hardships, Carlos Santana's story is ultimately one of resilience. His journey from childhood trauma to musical legend is a testament to the power of creativity, spirituality, and inner strength. He not only found a way to transform pain into artistic expression, but also chose to use his platform to uplift others through philanthropy and honesty. The concept of Devadip, which translates to the light of the lamp of the Supreme, reflects Carlos Santana's profound quest for spiritual clarity and emotional healing, a pursuit that transcended the material rewards of fame. This internal search was likely shaped by unresolved pain from his past, including personal struggles and his battle with substance abuse during the 1970s. That era, marked by the turbulent highs and lows of the rock star lifestyle, coincided with the deaths of fellow musicians like Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, intensifying the emotional weight of Santana's journey. While he never directly attributed his drug use to the trauma he endured, the long-lasting effects of childhood abuse likely played a role in deepening the challenges he faced regarding identity, stability, and self-worth. It wasn't until much later in life that Santana fully confronted the buried pain of his youth. During a candid interview with Rolling Stone in 2000, he opened up about the harrowing abuse he had suffered as a child, and how revisiting those memories brought long overdue clarity. Speaking publicly about such a deeply personal and painful experience was a turning point. By breaking the silence that so often surrounds childhood abuse, Santana took a powerful step toward reclaiming his narrative. His courage not only illuminated his personal path to recovery, but also inspired hope among other survivors, proving that profound healing is achievable even after long-endured trauma. Spirituality became a cornerstone of Santana's recovery, In the early 1970s, he became a disciple of Sri Chinmoy, whose teachings centered around meditation, self-transcendence, and inner peace. These practices offered Santana a structured way to explore his pain and begin making sense of it. Through meditation and spiritual discipline, he found purpose beyond performance and fame. When he later embraced Christianity in 1992, themes of redemption, forgiveness, and divine love began to permeate not only his personal philosophy, but also his music. Tracks like Maria Maria from Supernatural, 1999, and albums such as Blessings and Miracles, 2021, reflect this transformation, underscoring messages of hope and personal evolution. In tandem with his spiritual development, Santana also pursued psychological healing through therapy, a vital but often overlooked tool for survivors of childhood trauma. Though he has not publicly disclosed the full extent of his therapeutic process, his acknowledgement of seeking professional help speaks volumes. Therapy allows individuals to confront repressed memories, challenge self-blame, and develop healthier emotional coping mechanisms. For Santana, combining therapy with spiritual practices likely helped create a holistic framework for understanding and healing from the deep wounds of his past. His commitment to this healing journey was not only personal but transformative, enabling him to draw strength from his suffering rather than be defined by it. One of the most extraordinary aspects of Santana's legacy is how he translated his pain into profoundly moving music. His signature guitar style, emotive, melodic, and soul-bearing, often feels like an extension of his emotional core. Albums like Caravanserai, 1972, which leaned into introspective jazz fusion, and Supernatural, 1999, rich in both spiritual and worldly themes, showcase this emotional range. Although Santana has never directly linked his music to his childhood abuse, the cathartic and healing energy of his work is palpable. For many listeners, his music provides comfort, strength, and a sense of shared humanity. For Santana himself, it may have served as a sanctuary, a sacred space where suffering could be transformed into beauty. Outside of his musical achievements, Santana has dedicated significant effort to using his platform for social good. In 1998, alongside his then-wife Deborah King, he founded the Milagro Foundation, a charitable organization committed to uplifting underserved youth through initiatives in health, education, and the arts. This philanthropic mission mirrors the empathy and compassion Santana developed through his own lived experience. Understanding vulnerability on a deeply personal level, he became a staunch advocate for those facing similar hardships. The foundation has donated millions of dollars in support of transformative programs, underscoring his belief in the power of opportunity and healing. By transforming his own pain into purposeful action, Santana created a legacy of compassion that extends far beyond music. Number 2. Battling tuberculosis in 1967. In 1967, a pivotal moment in Carlos Santana's burgeoning career was interrupted by a life-altering diagnosis. At just 19 years old, during a time when his Santana Blues Band was gaining momentum within the thriving San Francisco music scene, Santana was diagnosed with tuberculosis, TB, a potentially fatal bacterial infection caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. This illness, which primarily targets the lungs, posed an enormous threat to his physical health and musical aspirations at a critical juncture in his life. By the mid-1960s, tuberculosis had become increasingly rare in the United States, thanks to public health efforts, antibiotics, and improved sanitation. Incidences had plummeted to roughly 50,000 cases annually, a stark contrast to the earlier decades when TB was one of the deadliest diseases in the country. However, it continued to persist in immigrant communities and socio-economically disadvantaged areas where access to medical care was limited. As a young Mexican immigrant living in modest conditions, Santana was statistically more vulnerable. Contributing factors may have included overcrowded housing, limited access to healthcare, and inadequate nutrition, all of which could have weakened his immune system and increased susceptibility to infection. The diagnosis came at an especially inopportune time. Having recently relocated from Mexico to Tijuana and then to San Francisco with his family, Santana was immersed in the counterculture movement and had just begun establishing his musical identity. Influenced by legendary blues artists like B.B. King and T-Bone Walker, he formed the Santana Blues Band in 1966. Their early performances at notable venues like the Fillmore West, and openings for icons such as The Who and Steve Miller had begun attracting industry attention. Music promoter Bill Graham, who would later play a key role in landing the band their career-defining Woodstock performance, had started taking notice. Contracting tuberculosis during this pivotal period posed a serious threat, not just to Santana's physical health, but also to the dreams he had worked so hard to realize. TB symptoms such as persistent coughing, fever, night sweats, weight loss, and overwhelming fatigue would have been debilitating for someone whose work relied on stamina and breath control. The emotional toll of facing such a serious illness at a young age also cannot be overstated, especially given the historical stigma surrounding TB, which was often unfairly linked to poverty, poor hygiene, and social marginalization. Though Santana has not publicly detailed the specifics of his hospital treatment or how long his recovery took, it's clear that the experience left a lasting impression. The resilience required to recover from such a serious illness and return to an upward career trajectory speaks to Santana's determination and grit. Rather than allowing the illness to derail his goals, he used it as fuel for persistence, a mindset that would define much of his personal and professional journey in the years to come. San Francisco General Hospital, a public institution widely recognized for its dedication to treating diverse and often marginalized communities, became a crucial turning point in Carlos Santana's life. There, he underwent a rigorous 3-month treatment regimen for tuberculosis, a standard protocol during the 1960s. At that time, antibiotic therapies, including isoniazid, streptomycin, and penicillin-based medications, formed the backbone of TB treatment, having significantly improved outcomes since their introduction in the 1940s. Although highly effective, these therapies were far from easy. Patients often endured daily oral medications or injections, which could produce debilitating side effects such as severe nausea, overwhelming fatigue, and in the case of streptomycin, the risk of hearing damage. Santana's treatment likely included painful penicillin injections that required vigilant medical oversight to ensure that the infection was thoroughly eliminated and to prevent any emergence of drug-resistant strains. The timing of his illness couldn't have been more disruptive. In 1967, the Santana Blues Band was gaining critical momentum. Their performances at the Fillmore and opening gigs for high-profile acts were helping the group cultivate a devoted audience and draw interest from major industry figures, notably Bill Graham. But this growing wave of success was abruptly halted by Santana's hospitalization. The 3-month pause put a temporary stop to the band's upward trajectory, cutting them off from building on the early excitement surrounding their performances. In the cutthroat music scene of San Francisco, even short breaks could be detrimental, opening the door for rival bands to gain traction and possibly take their place. Carlos Santana, as the band's visionary guitarist and emotional anchor, was irreplaceable. Though members like Greg Rowley and Michael Shreve may have kept rehearsing or performing in limited contexts, their momentum was hampered by the absence of their leading creative force. Moreover, this interruption likely placed financial stress on the band. Medical costs and lost income from missed shows added to the pressure. Yet in the midst of this adversity, the episode underscored the strength of Santana's character and the deep loyalty of his bandmates. Instead of collapsing under pressure, the group held together. Upon his recovery, Carlos returned with renewed energy and determination. His illness didn't deter Bill Graham, who remained committed to supporting the band and would later help secure their iconic Woodstock performance in 1969. Overcoming tuberculosis undoubtedly reinforced Santana's inner strength and persistence. It was a defining experience that likely contributed to the resolve he would later display through personal challenges, professional disputes, and repeated reinventions of his career. By late 1967 or early 1968, he had completed treatment and rejoined the band, resuming his path to musical greatness. The successful elimination of the disease restored his physical vitality, but it also left a deeper imprint, one that emphasized the importance of health and resilience. When Carlos Santana returned to the spotlight, he did so with a fresh sense of purpose, guiding the Santana Blues Band to new heights, including their Woodstock breakthrough and the release of their debut album in 1969. Health battles in 2021 and 2022. Between 2021 and 2022, Carlos Santana once again found himself confronting serious health issues. In December 2021, he underwent an urgent heart procedure to address a medical concern that required immediate intervention. This news was shared through a statement from his team on social media, although Santana did not disclose the specifics of his condition or the exact nature of the procedure. In his message, he expressed deep appreciation to his fans for their unwavering support and conveyed his optimism about returning to the stage soon. The gravity of the situation resulted in the cancellation of several performances, including his scheduled residency at the House of Blues at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, a venue where he had held a recurring presence since 2012. These performances had become a vital component of his career, offering both a financial foundation and a meaningful opportunity to connect intimately with his fan base. On July 5, 2022, another frightening episode occurred when Santana, then 74, collapsed on stage at the Pine Knob Music Theater in Clarkston, Michigan. Midway through a high-energy set, he succumbed to heat exhaustion and dehydration, symptoms intensified by the extreme summer heat common to outdoor venues. Eyewitnesses described how he suddenly became disoriented and dropped to the ground, causing immediate alarm among his bandmates and crew. Emergency medical staff quickly intervened, and Santana was transported to a nearby hospital for urgent care and evaluation. In February 2022, he encountered yet another hurdle when both he and several members of his band tested positive for COVID-19. This diagnosis came during a time when the global pandemic continued to hinder live music events across the world. As a result, Santana was forced to cancel additional tour dates. The announcement, filled with regret, emphasized the collective responsibility to prioritize the health and safety of the fans, crew, and musicians involved. These back-to-back health scares, spanning a heart procedure, an onstage collapse, and a COVID-19 diagnosis, put Carlos Santana's physical stamina and emotional grit to the test. Nevertheless, his response in each instance illustrated his deep-rooted resilience and devotion to music. Following the heart procedure, he made a swift return to performing, bringing back the intensity and passion that have defined his decades-long career. His recovery from the onstage incident was equally impressive, with clear and honest communication reassuring fans of his progress. In the case of COVID-19, he approached the situation with caution and responsibility, delaying his return until it was completely safe. It's likely that Santana's ability to navigate these ordeals was shaped by his earlier life challenges, such as the trauma of childhood abuse and the grueling battle with tuberculosis as a teenager. His spiritual philosophy, which draws from both Christianity and the teachings of Sri Chinmoy, gave him a grounding force during turbulent times. The unwavering support of his wife, Cindy Blackman Santana, and his professional team also provided both practical and emotional stability throughout his recovery process. His openness in sharing these health challenges fostered a sense of closeness with his audience, who responded with an outpouring of empathy and encouragement. The journey of Carlos Santana, from a humble Mexican village to global superstardom, is a remarkable testament to his enduring resilience, artistic brilliance, and spiritual depth. By blending Latin rhythms, blues, jazz, and rock into a groundbreaking musical style, he not only earned global acclaim, but also left an indelible cultural legacy. Despite facing profound adversities, including traumatic childhood experiences, serious medical conditions, personal setbacks, and the deaths of important figures in his life, Santana has consistently channeled pain into creative expression and humanitarian action. Emerging as both a legendary musician and a compassionate healer, his life story stands as a powerful example of triumph over hardship, rooted in spirituality and a deep commitment to the transformative power of music.